guys, welcome back to another video. Lots of things to talk about today, from Gears update and potentially having Gears of War 6, some more numbers and information on Call of Duty, and a major change at Xbox and Perfect Dark, the creative director, Insomniac as well, plus some other things. But before we continue, if you do enjoy daily gaming news and content, make sure to hit that subscribe, share the video, all that stuff, and let's jump right into it. So we have some news here that is very interesting, which I think will push both of these games out a little further. Now, when it comes to Perfect Dark, I wasn't really expecting this game before 2026. We did see it at the showcase this year, and I thought the game looked really, really good. A lot of fun. I liked what they were going with inside of the creative part of it. It looked very good to me. But it looks like there's going to be another major changer that could change up the way the game is going to be ending up releasing, how it's going to look, all of that stuff, which I think they have to make sure this game comes out at high quality, no issues with frames, no issues with image quality, nothing like that. And Xbox absolutely has that within their first party studios to be able to wait to make sure games are at high quality when they do release, because they have plenty of games in the works. They have plenty of games coming out and plenty of studios to make sure that games can cook. And even if they are ready, make sure that everything is completely solid with it before releases, so there's no real negative press and everything that you have seen previously with games like Redfall. So Perfect Dark, I think, needs to come out top tier, and it looks good so far, but there is going to be a major changer that I think is going to change potentially the direction of this game. PlayStation's Wolverine creative director Brian Horton is now leading Xbox's Perfect Dark. So that's big. I think Insomniac does great stuff. It's my favorite studio at PlayStation because I believe they focus more on gameplay and actually making games fun than just a movie style of game. So that's cool to see that, bringing the talents over from there. And then when it comes to Insomniac and Wolverine, that's another one that's been a question mark, in my opinion. We've seen it announced, and then we saw the Insomniac leaks, and we haven't seen anything about this game. Who knows when it is going to come out? I was expecting a 2025 release, but I don't think this game is coming out in 2025 at this point. And this will mean that right now we have Ghosts of Yotei from PlayStation. Will that be the only first party game that we do get? And if so, that means it's going to be going on 3 years here, where PlayStation is very, very light on their first party content. But they have now some new heads at that studio. Marcus Smith and Mike Daly will now lead Wolverine, and they previously held the creative director and game director roles at Ratchet & Clank: A Rift Apart. Quote here saying, "The change atop the Wolverine development team are the result of creative decisions around the game," the two sources told GameFile. SIE's rep declined to comment on the reason for the role changes on Wolverine. So again, this game is probably pushed out. This is probably a 2026 release. So it will be interesting to see if PlayStation has anything other than Ghosts of Yotei for 2026. So some major changes here. Well, I think both games are going to work out and be completely fine. But of course, hopefully we get some more updates of them in 2025. Now, when it comes to Call of Duty, we saw all of the numbers from yesterday. And as I said, I think it was common sense that you put this game into Game Pass, it's still going to be a top seller. It's still going to do very well everywhere. And it's going to be a win for Xbox and Xbox Game Pass. This game has sold an insane amount of copies. We have information here from the Washington Post telling us that Call of Duty has sold over 500 million units to date, which is absolutely insane. And my biggest question here is, what are the sales on PlayStation and Steam and Xbox now? How have those broken up with it being an Xbox Game Pass? We've seen the claim here, the press release from Xbox themselves, that unit sales are already 60% higher on PlayStation and on Steam compared to last year. And this is with the game dropping into Xbox Game Pass. So this, I think, is going to be super massive, like insane sales once we do see the numbers. We get that probably in maybe the next financial report. We'll get an update on that. But Call of Duty is doing very well. It's going to continue to do well. It means more games coming to Game Pass, and obviously Xbox making a ton of insane money off of this for bringing more games to the customers, more games to the Xbox Game Pass ecosystem. But yeah, this is a gamble. It looks like it has absolutely paid off for Xbox. So when it comes to the actual development structure of Call of Duty, that's always a question that I had when the ABK acquisition went through, is Xbox going to change anything in terms of how this game is developed? Particularly, I was interested in, are they going to change the length of the development cycle? Like for me, Black Ops 6 is a great game. This could last 2-3 years, no problem. They just add content to it and people will be happy. And they could take more time to make sure that every single Call of Duty has some significant changes in it that really get people excited if they don't release it on a yearly basis. Now, I don't think that is going to change just because of the sheer amount of money the game does make. They don't really comment on that here, but as well as the structure of the way the game is developed with all of the studios and Xbox. Are they going to bring in other people to help make the games? I don't think that is going to be the case. In fact, Matt Cox here, the senior vice president and general manager of Call of Duty and Activision, claims that the structure has not changed at all under Xbox. It's just status quo basically right now as to how these games are developed. He says, when you look at Treyarch and Raven, they have a history of working together within the Black Ops franchise going all the way back to 2010. You have this history with people you work with, and that ultimately shows when it comes to the finished product from publishing and go-to-market standpoint. And I don't think that's going to change at all, especially after the release of Black Ops 6 and how well that is doing. They're probably just going to continue with the exact same structure and everything for developing this game in the future. And if they continue to hit like they've hit here with Black Ops 6, that is completely okay. Okay, Gears of War, one of the games I'm most excited for. It's one of my favorite franchises of all time, but one of the games I'm most excited for from Xbox out of their entire catalog is Gears of War E-Day. And when they announced that, it was just a great announcement. It's a throwback to Gears of War, the first one, and everything, and seeing Marcus and Dom back together. It was great. But there is that question. What are they doing for the story after Gears 5? Are they abandoning it? Is it over? Are they ever going to go back to it? And it looks like they had thought about it. I don't know if this means they will never go back to it. Maybe in the future, maybe after E-Day, they do jump back and continue the story. But Rod Ferguson here says that the original plan was to go for Gear 6, move away from Planet Sarah, and discover the rest of the solar system, which I think would be actually pretty cool. But there's no final decision that was made on who lives at the end of Gears 5. So we could see what happens. We could see what happens if they're going to continue after E-Day. E-Day is obviously a ways out, so we're not going to be able to see and continue the story into Gear 6 for a very, very long time, which a lot of people will, I think, be questioning that, but I'm actually okay with it. I love Marcus and Dom, I'll be honest, far more than the characters in Gears 5 and 6 or the newer characters that they did introduce. I don't dislike them, but to me, Marcus and Dom is Gears, so I'm happy that we're going back and going to see that prequel story for this franchise. I think it's going to be very, very good. We got a nice drop here into PC Game Pass. This was already on console, but Dead Island 2 is available today on PC Game Pass. They put this tweet out. Happy Halloween. We got this as a treat. So if you haven't played that and you are on PC Game Pass, you can go ahead and play that. So that's all the Xbox stuff. We'll jump over here and we will talk about Sony. As we know, Concord has been a huge failure for them. PS5 Pro, there's been questions about the price tag and everything. We'll see how that does sell. I think it'll do okay, definitely at the start. And there's been layoffs and everything, closures at PlayStation. I believe they've closed more studios than Xbox in this year. And there's been some questions about it. They were speaking in a recent chat with Variety, and that is Herman Hulst and Hideki Nishino, the two CEOs atop of Sony Interactive Entertainment. And here's what they say about everything that is going on. You have Nishino here saying that he's remaining optimistic. He says, we started working on PS5 Pro even before the PS5 launches, which that's not surprising. That's usually how it goes. Says it was another 5-year project for us. We're kind of happy to see like most engaged gaming users are interested in the PS5 Pro. And then I'm pretty sure new users will grab the PS5 Pro as well. If it's the PlayStation you want to get, that's the thing. So that's where we design the generation at this moment. We design everything with having one ahead in our mind, which I don't fully understand. This kind of seems to me somewhat out of touch, but I could be absolutely wrong. He says, I'm pretty sure the new users will grab the PS5 Pros. Well, I don't know that. I don't think new users who are trying to jump into PlayStation will go and see the price tag of the PS5 Pro and say, yeah, that's the one I'm spending my money on. A lot of people will probably try to get the cheaper option if they've taken this long to jump into the generation. That's just kind of the way I see it. I feel like if you haven't bought a PlayStation 5 or a Series X by this point, you're probably not an enthusiast to the sense that you want the highest end technology for this stuff. And when you do decide to make the jump from last generation, which will be halfway or even more so through this generation, you're probably just trying to get in where you can get in, whether that's a Series S, whether that's a base PlayStation 5 and paying less money, all of that stuff. So I don't know if people are going to jump right to the PS5 Pro. That one I don't fully agree with. Now, Herman Hulst talks about more stuff about the software lineup and everything. And he says, we've learned a lot from that. At PlayStation Productions, we have 10 productions now in the works. The Last of Us, Twisted Metal, and a few others that we're very excited about. It's funny because PlayStation, they are really banking on movies and TV shows, which is kind of the funny talking console war things that people say against their games, which they are movie games. And they're really banking on those actual movies and TV shows to bring in that extra revenue that the games aren't bringing in, especially because they don't have any multiplayer or games as a service stuff. He continues here and says, we're talking about adaptations, but in adaptations, that's taking the game and then to see what else you can do with it. We're actually looking to build from the ground up as we tried to do originally with Horizon and creating this world and creating this storyline. And how can you tell stories in the world on various mediums? And then he rounds up the interview and talks about the layoffs and everything and says, it's our duty to look at our resource planning and make sure that we run a sustainable business. That's part of being CEO. We never take that lightly because we know these people personally, and it's very close to our hearts and the teams in good working atmospheres. But yes, we've had some layoffs. But it's also important to realize that on the content side, PlayStation Studios is now much bigger an organization than when it started. It's grown tremendously, and that is organic growth that our existing teams, I think, hired quite aggressively, as well as through mergers and acquisitions. So the organization, the employment is much greater now than it was, let's say, for example, 5 years ago. So he doesn't really talk about Concord, doesn't really talk about anything like that. And Firewalk, which is obviously the hot topic right now as to everything that is going on in PlayStation. I don't know. We'll see what happens going forward in the future. There's been a lot of negative news here with PlayStation, and we will see how Herman Hulse and Hideki Nishino bring it back from some of the negative stuff here, especially with the recent Concord debacle. And finally, AMD has announced their next generation CPUs with the Ryzen 7 9800X3D gaming CPU coming for November 7th for $479. And there's a lot of information out there on this thing if you want to get the latest and greatest in the AMD stuff. But they say here that it will be up to 20% better than Intel's latest Core Ultra 9 285K in gaming. And that they say AMD computing and graphics boss Jack Wynn reveals that in many games such as Far Cry 6 and Cyberpunk 2077, we are more than 40% faster. So if you're looking to get into the Zen 5 architecture and the second generation of 3D V-Cache technology, then this is going to be the latest CPU for you. So this will be interesting as we move forward, especially going into next generation of consoles and everything, and working with AMD. I'm assuming Xbox will go back to them. If they do, like, how will these compare to what is the latest and greatest on the PC market? Because you always have those comparisons. We know consoles never are at high end PC, but they'll be more in the mid-range. And especially if they release these consoles on more expensive prices, like at $700 as a floor price, then I would say the comparisons will be greater now with the prices of the consoles going up. But I'll end the video there. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.